Grand Rising, Synchronized Souls, and welcome to your Elemental Soulscope for Aries season. Water signs, this one is for you. It was an interesting feeling pulling your cards. I just kept getting the feeling that something isn't what it appears. Something doesn't feel right. Something isn't aligned. And it feels like you know this, but you weren't quite entirely sure how or where. What I will say is this Aries season, things will be brought to light for the water signs. And we start off your 4-card spread with the Prince. What's interesting is Prince going to just again go back to the fact that because we are using the archetype cards, because I am a shadow worker and a light worker, because we speak about shadow and light, the Prince as the light attributes really comes up as romantic charm, right? And that potential for power. And it feels like there are some opportunities that are arising for y'all water signs right now. For us, right? I'm a water sign. I have lots of water in me. So really recognizing that as of right now, with those opportunities that are presenting themselves, are you really using your third eye to see through the illusion? Are you really seeing who is committed, who is devoted, who is disciplined to the lifestyle that we live, being the water signs that we are, through the feelings, through the shadow work? Are they committed to actually feeling all of the feels and having your intuition and your body lead the way? Are we still letting our ego run the way, right? Are we still letting our mind roll the way? And it seems like maybe around you, some souls were trying to convince you that they were ready, that they weren't going to be using their power for bad, right? That they weren't going to be using their power simply because they wanted more power or simply because there was this sense of entitlement. It felt like somebody worked and tried real hard to convince you that they were ready. And it was because of their own interest, right? It was because of where they were at in their own form. So really recognizing right now that with this Prince attribute, whether that is souls that are asking for your help, souls who are asking for your guidance, your medicine, the way that you deliver it, or if it's simply recognizing that maybe there is a love interest, right? I'm feeling love interest, but also business partnerships. And they're really saying, hey, I want to be in that form of relationship with you, right? To create that power with you, to give to you the way that others give to you, right? To have that sense of fairness. But also ask yourself, do you feel that compassion and do you feel that wisdom? And maybe that's not something that we associate with that masculine energy. But again, when our masculine energy is synchronized with our divine feminine energy, we go back to our divine feminine energy so that we can replenish ourselves, so that we can, right, really feel the wisdom, really feel that compassion for ourselves, and then give that to other people. So if somebody's walking up saying that they are a prince right now, really go through their receipts, right? Where in their history have they been asked to show up, and how have they showed up? Right? Where in their history have they been asked to be a leader, and how have they stepped up to be a leader? Where in their history have they been generous? And you can sit down and say, yeah, you did that out of the goodness out of your heart, not because there was some form of expectation. So again, yes, we're going to be using our intuition to navigate these souls and situations that are arising, but we're also going to take the time to really listen to our third eye, to really see what it is that we are seeing and to believe in that, right? To not be a detective, to not have to go further or have to look further, but simply ask ourselves, do I believe and do I feel, right, what it is that this person is saying? Because we already know that our intuition stays strong. So we don't need to do all of that work, right? Our journey in this lifetime being water signs is trusting that, right? Trusting our feeling, trusting our intuition. And we're going to be able to do that the more that we actually ask ourselves, what is this feeling telling me? What is my intuition telling me? What is this nudge? The more awareness we place on that, the easier it's going to be for us to distinguish between the nudges. We continue our spread to go into Samaritan. And really what came in there was martyr, was really the word that I was feeling, right? Is like, where are you stepping up and really like laying on your sword and being a martyr? I want to remind us all that we are not victims and we are not our emotions do not control us, right? Being water signs and feeling as deeply as we do, maybe we're going into that mindset of really feeling like we need to be the ones, right, to fall on the sword. This one particularly, they keep saying empaths, so I'm going to save that one, right, that word for y'all, empaths. All of you empaths out there who are helping at a detriment to yourself, reminding you that you're not doing anybody any good, right? You're acting as a martyr, and that means you're doing that with the expectation of some form of appreciation or recognition or gratitude for what it is that you're doing, which means it's not actually coming from a place that is selfless. Yes, I do recognize being a human, not all things can come from a place that is selfless, but there are a lot of things that we can start grounding ourselves in that is very selfless, right? That is really outside of ourselves, and that is our mission, that is our values, that is our soul's purpose, that is really recognizing that we want to align ourselves with the greatest good, not only for ourselves, but for the highest good of all, and that includes all of the multiverses, right? So really going back into a space of, again, if we are giving and we actually want to help, where and what spaces can we start maybe volunteering, maybe working with a nonprofit, instead of maybe giving in those spaces that you're actually expecting those forms of appreciation or maybe monetary value and not getting that and feeling like there is some form of disconnect, right? We want you all to be in that space of light attributes, and that means really recognizing that you do have the capacity of helping, but it might be that maybe the souls that you're supposed to be helping are the souls that you're maybe running away from right now. I always say, especially in my coaching program, that when I think of my ideal soul client, when I think of my ideal soul tribe, I think of those who are at different versions of their soul journeys, of course, but I really do think of old versions of myself and where I was at in my particular journey and how I can be of service to help those versions of myself, right? Those souls who may be stuck in the similar spaces that I was stuck in the past. And with that shift, what then happens is I do recognize that, old Ashantè would love to ignore, right? Old Ashantè would not want to show up in this capacity because of the way that it reminds me of my own journey. But in helping souls, it allows me to have more compassion for myself because of all of the compassion that I'm giving them. So I understand is really what I'm trying to say. I feel and I empathize with the inclination to want to run from the very things that you know are your power, that you know are your soul's gift, that you know that you're going to be able to help souls in a way that nobody else can. And as we start awakening to that this Aries season, really asking ourselves, how can we give back to those spaces, to those souls, to those timelines that we may want to ignore because our ego is saying, let me protect myself, right? Just reminding you that you have the ability to protect you because you are supported, you are safe, and you are cared for. And there are so many people, right? Not only people in this world, but people and souls in other dimensions and light beings who are interested in your journey. So you don't have to help everybody, right? There's plenty of help that is there, but it is for you to recognize where can you help and where can you add value, and how can we start showing up in those attributes without feeling like other souls may be more deserving, right? Because you are deserving, because we are all deserving. Continuing with our spread and going into Angel, and this was also a very interesting feeling to get. When that feeling of Angel came up and really following that card of being a martyr, being a Samaritan, and having those shadow attributes really be the forefront in terms of the feelings that came up. Angel really felt like a confirmation, right? Like if there's someone right now in your soul circle or in your vicinity within your space that you know has a tendency to act naive or act innocent or play the victim in order to get sympathy, I want to tell y'all that like this is the confirmation, right? This is the confirmation that they are misleading. This is the confirmation that they are claiming to falsely be maybe connected to, I want to say, a space or a dimension that maybe they are not actually connected to. And even if it's not that they're not connected, because again, I really go into the space that yes, we all fluctuate between various dimensions on Earth, right? So not really attaching ourselves to that, but really asking ourselves, how can we ground ourselves in the energy of that dimension? So when we think about, that 5D, how are we grounding ourselves in that love, in that forgiveness, in that understanding, in that empathy, so that we can continue to ground ourselves more in those particular energies, so that we can respond instead of reacting, so that we can be in our body, right? So really recognizing that those who show up as an angel, those who show up with that attribute of simply wanting to help, they help because they want to help. There is no expectation in return, right? And there's a lot of things that I do for free with no expectation in return, this being one of them, simply because I do want to help. I want to help shift. I want to help awaken. I want to help be that inspiration, that motivation, that voice that maybe you're missing right now in your particular reality. So this is what I do, right? This is the way that I can help. But there's also lots of ways that I do help with an expectation in return, such as my coaching programs. I expect that my soul coaching students will do the homework. I expect that they will be at the divine teachings, right? I expect that they are going to be investing their time and their resources into this program. So really recognizing that we can help in multitude ways. And if you're recognizing that maybe you're not getting what you need in that area, again, how can we start shifting the expectations to places where that actually makes some sense? Nope, not going to say again, nobody's telling you that you cannot get appreciation for the things that you do, but just recognizing in what spaces do you get appreciation for the things that you do. Because if not, you're constantly going to be given and giving and giving, and you're going to expect somebody to say something or somebody to recognize or validate. And I'm going to remind you that nobody needs to do that, right? Nobody needs to validate your feelings. Nobody, right? For you to know that they are valid, yes, but it's not for us to then go outside of us seeking that expectation that it must be given to us, because it is a need that we have. It is a need that we must fulfill within ourselves. So really going back to that Prince energy at the beginning, right? How can we start capitalizing and start embodying and being in our own divine masculine energy and really having that be the forefront moving forward? Last card to wrap up the spread is Artist. And man, I love this. So aligned, simply because literally 2 days ago, I just did a workshop to help a nonprofit organization that was grounded in artists and creatives called Rise Entertainment, and really recognizing that Rise is this, right? That artist piece. So when we go back to artistry, I want to remind you that creatives and artists exist in all industries. And some of them that come up are those who are chefs, right? Those who work with flowers, perfume, landscapers, painters, photographers. There are so many different forms of artists that exist. Sculptors, right? And really asking ourselves, really what an artist is how are we embodying our passion? How are we allowing the world to see outside of the five senses that exist, right? Outside of the physical. And the beautiful thing about artists is that we have the ability to allow souls to see symbolically, right? To see the patterns, to see the archetypes, to see life in a bigger picture, so that we can get out of the noise, right? Get out of the funk, get out of all of the details that maybe are has so many thoughts, right? And anxious thoughts just circulating in our head, and really just being in our body and being in that feeling right now. The other thing about artists I gotta say is being that shadow attribute, again, shadow and light in this community, right? Shadow and light. Again, I'm in flow when my words are getting mumble and mixed up. So I appreciate y'all with your patience as I flow through all of this. But really recognizing with that shadow attribute, how are you showing up with that archetype of being a starving artist, right? Of that archetype of really expecting pity because maybe you're not getting the support that you expected, right? So how are we going about maybe misusing our talents right now? And again, what's so interesting is, how are you embodying, right? If you know that you are an artist, then as you continue to embody what it means to be an artist, which is to really exist outside of our five senses, to really allow souls to feel feel and see something outside of what it is that they deem physical, then you know that the money will flow. You know that the abundance will flow, because what you do does not make logical sense, right? You cannot explain the feelings that transpire when somebody hears a song or reads a poem or sees a sculpture or sees a painting, and really recognizing that as artists, as creatives, as soulpreneurs even, we exist outside of the realm of black and white. We exist in this beautiful gray area, constantly teeter-tottering between the two. So how can we start being okay with that? Really recognizing that with that feeling of artistry, with that feeling of being an artist, reminding yourself that your talents have been there all along. So in what areas have you continued to want to share, continue to want to support? And how have you support other artists? Because you simply love art, right? Because you simply believe in art as a healing modality, knowing that art can be a way for souls to find their own generational wealth, to find their voice, to find their passion, to find their bodies, right? To get out of their mind, out of the anxiety that exists, and really be for that moment. So recognizing all of the things that you value, that you stand for as an artist, how are we bringing that to the fruition, and how are we giving back to that as well? Before we wrap up, we're just going to see the bottom and the top of the deck again, just to see what are the potential blockages, and then a piece of advice for you to work with. So we're going to start off with bottom of the deck being Scribe, which is interesting. This is a card that came up in the Earth Signs Elemental Soulscope for Aries season. And what's interesting with this is, again, really getting that feeling for these water signs, that it's not that y'all are preserving the information and stuff. It's not that you're not either. It's just that souls are really coming to you wanting that knowledge so that they can copy it, wanting that knowledge so that they can just take what you're doing and replicate it in their own space. Really not asking themselves how they can be of service to their own community, how they can be of service using their own skills, their own gifts, their own experiences, right? So again, really just recognizing that with that feeling that I was getting at the beginning of this reading, if you're recognizing that something doesn't feel right, that something is off, that you can't quite make sense of it, it's not for us to be going deeper in right now. It will be illuminated as Aries season continues to move through it. But again, recognizing that at this point in time, it's for us to really recognize that not everybody is as devoted and as disciplined as you are, especially when it comes to finding how they themselves can shine. And then the top card in terms of the piece of advice, funny what came up was Gossip, right? So again, light attributes, awaken consideration for feelings of others, and honoring trust, right? So gossip isn't always a bad thing, reminding ourselves that back in the day, gossip was the way for us to know who was pregnant, who was having a kid, who was out of work, so that the community could really come together and support. So yes, how are we supporting others? But again, going into that shadow attributes, how are other souls using their own power, right? Taking your information, betraying the trust and the knowledge that you're giving, the wisdom that you're sharing, and really not doing it for that highest good of all. So really this Aries season's, what I'm going to say is, look out, right? Wanted to say it, didn't want to say it. I was like, do I say it? I'm going to say it. Look out. Beware. Things aren't what they seem, but that's not a bad thing, right? You have all of the advice, all of the soul suggestions from us, but you also have your own intuition, your guides, your own support team that's also coming in to remind yourself that we can only control what we can control, right? Which is our controllables. We can only manage what we can manage. So let's start managing and owning that. As always, take what you need and leave the rest. And be sure to watch your rising and your moon sign if you've only watched your sun sign thus far. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye, synchronizing souls.